You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
It's still amazing to think how great this sounds, considering you were an hour and a half away from me right now.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sorry I couldn't make it in person. I had meetings in Denver today, and so I had to be up here.
I can't get this guy off his murder conviction because I have to go on a radio show. That we don't need that kind of pressure.
Yeah, that's just, it's more than anyone can handle.
Right.
Hey, I should tell you, just so that your listeners understand this, what I did was really stupid. I was up in my attic above my garage, and there was somebody put plywood down that a prior homeowner had over the joists. And then in areas where it didn't have plywood, they had insulation. And so it was kind of dark, and I stepped off the plywood onto insulation thinking it was still plywood. And my body went right through the insulation and the drywall below. And those gymnasts you see in the Olympics where they catch themselves, the male gymnasts the parallel bars. And they'll flip, and then they'll land with the bars underneath each armpit, basically. So I did that. I used the joists as my parallel bars, caught myself on my armpits. My legs were dangling below. I cut my back. Ripped my favorite shirt.
Man, well, you could have been a lot worse. So you could have fallen straight through and crashed to the ground below.
Ross, it could have been a lot worse.
You could have. Yeah, now, can you sue yourself for something like that? Is that possible?
Ross, if I could have sued myself, I would have done it a long time ago.
Oh, man.
A long time ago.
See, even fancy lawyers sometimes make the wrong call.
I tell you what.
Man, we got a busy edition of the Law Frog, as once a month we get quality time with Dave here. If you have legal problems, you can still get us on the phones here today. We got a couple emails to conquer. One involving squirrel murder, which is going to be an interesting one. Can you shoot squirrels with a BB gun? I mean, they get into your stuff.
Dun.
I was putting my garden in. I kept on finding walnuts and peanuts and all kinds of stuff buried during the winter by squirrels. They can be a pain. So we'll get to that. But first, I want to start with that interesting story I sent you in regards to the lady who won an obscene amount of money. And it seems like it was a technicality. She sued Geico because she got an STD for sleeping with a guy, unprotected sex with a guy in the backseat of his car. How she concluded she could sue Geico, I have no idea. How this even got to the courts, I have no idea. And the fact she was awarded $5 million, I have no idea what's going on here. What is that all about? Try to explain that to me, please.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this one. And at first blush, and at second blush, and third blush, it seems kind of difficult to comprehend. And it's cases like this that make it difficult for people to maintain more traditional claims involving their car insurance carrier, the stuff that we anticipate car insurance actually covers.
Right.
And so I'm not a huge fan of what's going on right now, because I think it makes things harder for people who have the claims that are legitimate. And when I say legitimate, I mean a legitimate claim involving an insurance carrier regarding a car. The woman has a very legitimate claim.
McDivitt Law does most of the business.
We do all the time.
Personal injury stuff, car accidents. And
that's right.
Yeah, this just kind of adds some more murkiness to the water.
I think it puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And here's let's unpack it. What you've got are a couple of different things. What the woman did, she and this guy, her boyfriend, were having sex in his car, unprotected. They were in a relationship, just like, just
regular people.
Two people having sex in a car, right? She contracts HPV from him. And fast forward, she ends up suing him. She doesn't sue Geico. She sues him. Now, she let Geico know that she was going to be making a claim against his auto policy. And for some, he had it looks like maybe $1 million amount of coverage. And so that's often the case whenever for example, in Colorado, and by the way, states are different in whether they allow a direct lawsuit against an insurer, the insurance company for injuries. But in Colorado, for example, what you do is if somebody's hurt in a car crash, what we do is we evaluate the injuries and the clients get medical care. When we have a good idea of what the value of their case is, we will send a demand to the insurance company saying, Jane Doe suffered these damages. She's got well over $1 million worth of damages. Your insured is responsible. Your insured was insured. This was a car crash. And we would like you to pay the $1 million that's under that policy. And then the insurer might say, no, we're not going to do it. We're willing to pay you $600,000. Or they might say, well, our insured actually wasn't, for some reason or another, we're not actually going to cover the claim at all. And I'll get back to that point in a minute. But if you can't agree with the insurance company in Colorado on that amount, what you end up doing is you file a lawsuit, not against the insurance company. You file a lawsuit against the person who caused the harms. And so it's a lawsuit against another person.
Okay.
The driver of the car, for example.
Yeah.
And then if that lawsuit doesn't get settled, usually because the insurance company pays for a lawyer to represent that driver, so they intervene. This gets kind of technical and it gets kind of boring, but what happens is they pay for a defense coverage. It's usually part of the insurance policy that they want to ensure whereas they want to make sure that their insured has a lawyer in court representing them. And then if a jury awards, let's say, $3 million, in Colorado there's a process by which you can then go, the person who caused the crash then has a bad faith claim against his own insurance company for not paying that $1 million originally, when our client was asking just for the $1 million. But now we get a jury verdict for $3 million. This guy is personally on the hook. The driver of the car is now personally on the hook to pay $3 million to our client, and he doesn't have that kind of money, so he can go to his insurance company and say, hey, you really messed up. You put me in jeopardy here, because if you just paid the $1 million on my policy, they would have settled the case.
But you're the guys who wanted to take this to court, and now it's your fault. It's a $3 million deal instead of $1 million.
Exactly.
Wow.
So now let's go to Missouri, and I'm not sure exactly how Missouri law works in that capacity, but what I do understand is that she filed a claim with Geico. They outright denied it. They said, look, we're not going to pay you, and she asked for $1 million. They said, we're not going to pay you the $1 million. In fact, we're not going to pay anybody anything because this has nothing to do with us. I mean, it's the guy. Yeah, it took place in a car, but a lot of funky stuff takes place in a car. Like,
right.
People do drugs in a car, right? Well,
plus,
people overdose in a car.
We've had the discussion since COVID that you can't sue someone because you think they gave you COVID because you can't prove that you got it from them. How can she prove that she contracted that from him at that time, exact moment of time in the backseat of his car?
But let's assume, and an arbitrator determined this too, that it's easy to prove that she got the transaction or the transmission of the HPV took place in the car. Let's just assume that is proof. Like, they only had sex twice, and it was both times was in the car, right? Okay. Let's just assume that.
All right.
But Geico's position is, Jesus, I mean, all sorts of stuff takes place in a car that might not be good,
right? And
we can't be responsible for.
And the fact you had unprotected sex, it's your fault.
Yeah, but you're not using the car. The car wasn't the mechanism of injury. It was we don't need to get graphic here, but we understand what the mechanism of the transmission was, right?
Yeah.
The actual car. It's not like a car striking a pedestrian, right? So, and this has unlimited repercussions if you start thinking about anything bad that can happen inside a car that somehow the insurance company is going to be on the hook for. So let's say, anyway, we get into that later. But going back to this specific case, what Geico said is we're not going to get involved in this because it's not our business.
It's
we don't insure this guy for this kind of conduct, right? Well, so what she does is she files a suit against her ex-boyfriend or boyfriend. I don't know what their current relationship is. And they enter into an agreement to go to arbitration, which is basically, and it can take different forms, but instead of going to a jury trial, instead of even going into a courtroom, you both agree that there will be some person or maybe three people or one person who will hear the evidence, call witnesses, and then make a decision. And you can enter into what's called binding arbitration. So you guys agree ahead of time that, hey, we can't figure this out between the two of us, so we're going to go find somebody who can make a decision. It's like, when you have parents, like siblings who can't get along, the parent makes the final decision, and there's just you just have to deal with it, right? And so with binding arbitration, what they're saying is, look, no matter what this person says, the arbitrator, that's going to be it, right? And so what this arbitrator did is they, irrespective of or regardless of whatever was taking place with Geico, the arbitrator was focused more on the relationship between the man and the woman and whether the woman got the transmission in the car or, from this guy and what her harms were because of it and what the damages were. And so what this arbitrator was doing was saying, look, yeah, you got the HPV from this guy. Yeah, that's proven. All right. And it's caused you these damages. Okay, we proved that. And we think that the value to you is over $5 million. Now, and you can look at that with a straight face and say, okay, that can make sense. This guy knew he had HPV. He had a throat tumor because of the HPV. He knew he was contagious. He didn't disclose it to her. And as a result, she's now stuck with this for the rest of her life. So the award itself doesn't shock me. The fact that she's getting this justice for her harms and her losses doesn't violate any concern I have. But what happens next is where things get a little murky. They go immediately to court then. Once they have this private arbitration award, they go to court to basically turn that into an actual judgment that can be legally enforced then. And they agree to do this for what, I don't know, what kind of agreement they had ahead of time, but she goes to court and the court says, okay, you got this arbitration award. It's all legitimate. So now we're entering judgment on, in favor of the woman against the man. He owes her $5.5 million. She turns around and goes to Geico and says, hey, look, you're now on the hook for this award. And that's where Geico says, whoa, wait a minute. No, we're not. And by the way, Geico had separately, and again, we're getting back into the weeds here, filed their own motion in federal district court asking the district court to just look at this from a top view from 30,000 feet to say, hey, Geico is not implicated in this at all because Geico is not, this insurance policy does not encompass sexually transmitted diseases that take place in or around or on a car.
All right, so you have no complaints with the loss. My head is hurting, actually. I knew it was difficult, too, just because I read the story. My brain got hurty because it was just like I couldn't understand exactly why. So suing the guy and being rewarded $5 million, that's maybe expected in a case like this, but the fact that Geico is on the line is what's the stunner here, right? That's
what gets to me. And listen, look, I want people who suffer harms and losses to get recourse and for their harms and losses. I support that 100%. I'm just very concerned about a situation where we expand these contracts to something that was never anticipated by either party. I mean, when you sign into a contract for insurance, when you insure your vehicle, you're doing it so because you want to make sure that if you cause a crash, whether through just being totally oblivious to what's going on or one reason or another, that there is some financial wherewithal to help make it right for the person that you have hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Or you want to make sure that you have the kind of insurance so that if somebody does something to you, you have the financial wherewithal to make things right. In the context of operating a vehicle or using the vehicle somehow, like where the vehicle itself is the mechanism by which these injuries take place. And this, to me, but again, Ross, we don't have all of the facts. Yeah. And so it's easy for me to get on my high horse. I don't have the facts, but at the same time, it just strikes me as wrong.
Obviously, this can get appealed. What happens? What do you think when we're all said and done?
Yeah, so what's gone on? They appealed it. So this trial court, the main traditional court in Missouri, your normal court, entered the judgment in favor of the woman and said, Geico, Geico filed a motion to intervene. The judge allowed that at the same time where he entered the judgment in favor of the guy, or in favor of the woman against the man who did this.
Wow.
But then what happened is then Geico appealed it to the Missouri Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals upheld it on the appellate arguments that were presented by Geico, which all had to do with basically their ability to intervene at that later junction and try to do their own investigation and be involved in this. And the Missouri Court of Appeals said, look, you could have done this sooner. Instead, what you did is you went straight to the federal district court and said, can you make a ruling that we're not implicated in this at all? And then you kind of wash your hands of it. and you could have intervened earlier. That's basically what I take away from the appellate court in Missouri. Now, Geico is going to probably appeal that, most certainly to, and I don't know how the court structure works in Missouri. Every state is a little different, but I'm guessing there will be the Missouri State Court of Missouri State Supreme Court. Like in Colorado, we have district courts, which hear everything from an auto crash case to a murder. We have the Colorado Court of Appeals, which hears appeals from those courts. And then other appeals then go up one more level to the Colorado Supreme Court. And I suspect Missouri has a very similar structure.
So
nomenclature is different in some states. They call, New York has its own wording for things like this. But in Missouri, for example, it'll go to the Colorado Supreme Court. And again, it'll be limited to those issues that Geico raised in the appellate level, which was, we should have been allowed to intervene earlier. Because the core issue of whether Geico should even have to pay for STD transmission inside a vehicle is one that is really being litigated in federal district court.
Yeah, if this goes through, everyone's going to be doing it. It's like, hey, you want to come over and catch something in my Hyundai? Oh, man.
See,
all right, well, let's get to this then, the big question. Let's play the game, my friend. STD for cash. $5 million. Would you contract HPV?
This sounds like a game that I had friends in high school who would play at lunch. I remember this. We'd all have our sack lunches around like a playground at Paula High School. We'd go into Acacia Park, and these guys would be talking about, like, what would you, for $1 million, would you blank, blank, blank?
Right. That was always like, would you get punched by Mike Tyson for $1 million?
Yeah, for $1 million. I'm like, well, would it be to the shoulder? Because yes. To the face, I'm not so sure.
So I'm going to say no for HPV for me for $5 million.
I'm going to tell you. Well, I'm going to say no for. I'm going to say no for a lot of these things.
Show me herpes for $4 million. Ooh.
Nope.
No. All right. How about was it glaucoma or what? Not glaucoma. That's the eye thing. What's the one that sounds like a dinosaur? Gonorrhea.
Oh, gonorrhea
for $1 million.
No.
No, I don't
this
think
game.
How about uncomfortable rash for $500,000? Yeah, I'm in for the $5K on a rash.
Does it go away?
Yeah, probably. You get some cream or something, I assume. I don't know which ones go away. Oh, what about crabs for $500,000?
Okay, this is.
We should invest together and start a board game where you take this home and you play during Thanksgiving with your family. STD for cash thing. What do you think?
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
First, though, let's get to Francis in the trailer park. You said this is going to be an easy one, Dave?
Well, I said we talked whether it would be quick or not. Hey, can I say really quickly, H&H Tires, can I talk about the people on the radio or not? Since I was a kid, I will tell you, nobody has made tires sound cooler than H&H Tires. Their spots have always made tires seem sexy. I just love it.
You should do like burn rubber to McDivitt laws. You steal that.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Sure, love
all right,
that.
Francis's question is,
trailer.
I own a trailer, or I owned rather a trailer in a mobile home park. I sold the home back to them. They never took my name off the title. I've asked them multiple times, and they keep telling me they'll talk to the owner and see what they can do. And Francis wants to know if there's any way for him to do it himself, or does he just keep calling them to do it, pestering them? He sent the title to their home, to their attorney 7 years ago. This is a long, drawn-out thing for citizen Francis. What's he do?
Yeah, I know. And I don't know. And I understand. Well, I'm sorry. I don't know why it's taken so long for this to change. And it sounds like this is a matter of low priority, I guess, for the mobile home park, and maybe a matter of great inconvenience to the new owner. I'm not sure why it wasn't done at the time. There is a framework for doing this as far as changing title to a manufactured or mobile home. Involves a transfer declaration form to the motor vehicle department. Usually this thing, though, needs to be signed by the new owner. I've never done one of these. And so, I hesitate giving the pure specifics and saying, it can only be done by the new owner, that the old owner doesn't have the ability to just unilaterally do it himself.
It's interesting that you go to the DMV, though, huh? When it comes to mobile homes?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but it involves both the county tax assessor and then the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Interesting.
Because you got to get a title to it. It's titled like a vehicle in that sense. And then so when you do the sale, you need to make sure that you have, the taxes are accounted for. If there is going to be real property inside the mobile home that's being transferred to the new owner, like furniture, things like that. There was a tax on all of that too. But you got to get a new title with the DMV within 30 days of the sale. So I'm assuming that it's been titled in the new owner, but for some reason they didn't take the old owner off, and so I don't know if I don't know if it was jointly titled at one point. It's just really unclear how it could get to this point. And again, Ross, we're operating with not a full set of facts here.
Right.
And so in a situation like this too, I mean, my main piece of advice to Francis is to, rather than send it to their lawyer and wait for 7 years, is to just get your own lawyer. Which by the way is not an easy thing to do if you're not in a position to pay the money for a lawyer, and I recognize that. But the best way to do it is to try to consult with somebody, and maybe get some advice, spend an hour with consulting with a lawyer, get some advice on what you can do, Francis, yourself to try to make this happen, or to force the new owner to do this or the mobile home park to do this.
What's the bad thing about having Francis's name on the old title still? Well, what's the worst case scenario for him if he just walk away? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, any number of things, but I mean, most of it having to do with the liability of being on the hook for something that, let's say there's some issue with that mobile home and somebody gets hurt because of that mobile home, for example. If you're a listed owner, then you have obligations involving that. There may be liability that attaches to that.
If someone catches an STD in the trailer, you could probably lose your ass. Is that what you're saying? Is that the next level?
Well, I'm saying in the state of Missouri, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly what happened. Wow.
But other things too, though, too. I mean, so if there may be an issue where credit is impacted because the taxes aren't being paid for that mobile home by the new owner, and then there is a lien filed, and that lien then goes to the new owner, somebody who has a claim for work that they did on the mobile home that never got done. They filed a mechanics lien on it, and then the new owner and the old owner are both kind of on the hook if they're both on the title. So there are any number of reasons why you just don't want to be involved. If you don't own it, you don't want to be involved with it. You want to just wash your hands of it.
That's why we turned to Dave, because my advice is horrible. It's like, just leave it be, Francis. You'll be fine. And then he's getting his ass sued. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, exactly. No, listen, you want to be able to walk away from stuff you don't want anymore. Yeah. So I wish I don't have better advice other than I could get into you thought my conversation about Missouri arbitration laws was boring. I can talk to you about all the steps you would need to take to file a title, perfect a title for a mobile home trailer in Colorado, but I don't think anybody.
Yeah, I think we should play another round of STD for cash instead. That was riveting. That was riveting radio.
Doe. Ross, it's ST Doe. Doe.
ST Doe. Check it out at Target's going to be picking up our new board game soon. Okay, hey, we got room. If you have any questions on the Rock Lines, 633-KILO. Don't forget 719 or 800-727-KILO. We'll do this once a month, so you can send emails to us at any time. I'll get the Law Frog link on the top page of every page at kilo943.com. And just quick click, name and number, and your question. If you want to stay anonymous, that's a fine way to do it. We're going to do one more that we got to get to, which is very interesting. Can you legally kill squirrels? I assume getting in their garden, stuff like that. Do we know why the animals are such a pest for this question, Dave?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Garden related?
Yeah, we'll get into that.
Okay, cool. Stick around.
It's all garden. Yeah, it's garden, soil, yard related.
You're listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM. Presented by McDivitt Law Firm.
We're on one wireless carrier, and you're upset because everyone's making you switch to 5G and stuff like that. So you're sick of that company. You decided to go somewhere else, find a cheaper deal, sign up there. And now the original company is not releasing your account info, and they also shut off your phone. What would you say? Like it was 7 days before your bill was due? Is that the rough timeline, Dave?
Yes.
And so he wants to know, how does he get his account information to switch over his phone number? It's his business line that he needs desperately, and now he's got 2 cell phone bills probably, right?
Yes.
What's the deal, Dave?
Okay, so Dave, can you hear me? I'm also Dave.
Dave?
You can call me David. I'll make it easier.
Can you hear him all right, Dave?
Here, but I can hear you on the radio outside.
Okay. Try this, man. Here, this should
all right.
work. We have so many different buttons with Dave not in the studio. How about now, David? Can you hear Dave?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to... Okay, here's what I want to understand, too. And Dave, when you went to the second carrier, the new carrier, did you talk to them about porting over your old phone number? And porting over is the process that they go through to take the phone number from another carrier and then make sure it gets sent over to you.
Yes, absolutely.
What did they tell you about that?
They were actually... The stores were actually right next to each other.
Okay.
And so when I went there and I noticed their sign was down, all their equipment was took out, I went right next door to the other guy. And so he told me, all you need is your PIN and your account number, and we can transfer all this over. And then they had like the really good deals. I mean, it was being a really nice phone and a good plan. And so when I went to get the account number, they obviously know when I want that I'm moving. And at that point is where they just kept it hostage. You're like, you can't have that. You know.
So and they bounce around, and he goes from service call to service call. He goes gone to stores, and they're like, oh, we don't do that here. You got to go here. So they give him the run around. How does he get his stuff back? That's tough.
Well, that is complicated. That's tricky. I mean, I can, sometimes I look at things with like the lens of a blunt force object, and I think, okay, well, I guess you could sue your original carrier and try to get an injunction preventing them from closing out your account, and also forcing them to provide you your information because it's in essence your property. But really, what you might have is more of a technical issue. I mean, could you even go online, for example, and try to just access your original account online using a...
Do you have any old billing information?
Forgot my password, forgot my PIN.
Anything like that, Dave?
Well, not to, call myself real dumb, but I'm computer illiterate, for one thing.
Me too, buddy.
I went to Mitchell, man, heck.
You don't have any paper billing
left? Do any of that stuff, and, I'm just trying to, because I could see, like, they lied to me even, and gave me a business card, said, yeah, this is me. And so when I went back, I said, yeah, I need to talk to this guy. And he said, this is me. And I said,
Dave, are these, is this a national company? You don't need to tell me the name of the company, but are these national, are these one of the, are we talking about the national carriers?
One of the big five?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So maybe go to customer service on the website, but he's not very good on the email on the web. Dope! It's a tough one, Dave.
Well, yeah, it's tricky, but I would start with that. I would call go to the corporate. Let's just say so one of these big carriers you see advertises on TV. You can go to their website, and you should be able to find telephone information for kind of their customer service there, and just start that process. But it's your new carrier might be able to help really force the issue of porting over the telephone number, but usually unless it's been released to somebody else, you can still get that number.
All right, Dave. So good luck, buddy. That's not easy. And if you need some help, man, find someone who's computer savvy and have them help you out. But an email chain would definitely go a long way because they're just kind of passing you off, and there's no real proof that you have a problem yet.
That's right.
All right. Well, cool. Let's get to the final question. I'm fascinated. A girl on the west side wants to know if she can kill squirrels with her BB gun.
And it's really funny, too. And I communicated with her last night. I said, you can listen to the show and I'll give you the answer. I could have just texted it. So, anonymous, I promise I wouldn't use your name. Sorry I didn't tell you this sooner, but if you weren't listening, I would have told you anyway. So the question was, and she brought this up to me, she's like, look, I've got squirrels in my yard, and it is wreaking havoc on our yard, and every time we try to clean it up, the squirrels keep coming back, raccoons as well. Can we just discreetly kill them with BB guns or pellet guns? So but here's the trick. They live in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And they live on the west side. So the answer to the question, can we shoot our squirrels dead, is no.
Squirrels have
I can't even say
right?
anonymous. The squirrels have the right not to be shot in Colorado Springs by a gun. But squirrels...
I know there's a but coming.
There's a but. But anonymous, you can kill the squirrel other ways. So,
what? Like a flamethrower?
Yeah. I'm not sure if that falls under there's a city ordinance in Colorado Springs that prohibits the firing of a BB gun or any kind of gun unlawfully. And shooting animals in your backyard or your front yard is considered, generally an unlawful discharge of a weapon. And a weapon will include a BB gun, an air gun, pellet gun. So if a question to me had been, can we set traps? Can we poison? Can we do something to our squirrels to kill them? The answer probably would have been yes. But because the question was...
It's so indiscriminate, though, about traps and poison and stuff like that. So that sounds like typical government stuff.
Well, there are limits to what kind of traps you can use, too. But squirrels are a nuisance wildlife in the state of Colorado. So they are not a protected class of animals, along with all sorts of other things. So you can kill the squirrel. And there are a number of reasons that you might want to do that. But you just can't shoot them with the gun. That said, there are plenty of people out there, I know, in Colorado Springs who are shooting squirrels with BB guns. That's just illegal. And if you get caught, you can get in trouble. But so to that young 12-year-old boy who is shooting Coke cans in his backyard, I have to go back in time and tell him, no, that is illegal, young David. You cannot do that.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I got a Red Ryder BB gun.
Ross, I did not know that either when I was a kid shooting a BB gun in my backyard.
So unincorporated, like El Paso County, you can still do that. I got a guy who's being his chickens are being destroyed by a raccoon, and he's been waiting to shoot that thing with a pellet gun.
You know what? I don't have the ordinance in front of me. So unless El Paso County has some kind of ordinance restricting the use of a firearm in that situation, that may be legal. But the state of Colorado is going to have laws involving firearm use. But usually these are tied to city ordinances because of the close proximity people have to each other. Cities tend to have far more restrictive ordinances, rules, regulations than in unincorporated parts of a county.
And now we know.
That's just the nature of those. So, and I can't shoot the squirrel, but you can find other ways to do it.
Yeah, it's so funny. You can't shoot a squirrel, but you can flame
because
throw
her
it.
neighbors are feeding the squirrels.
Right, and that's what I guess I've seen some nasty posts on social media talking about stop feeding these tree rats and they're ruining my yard. And then people are like, leave them alone, they're so cute. Cute goes a long way in the animal world.
It does go a long way. It does. But the squirrels are everywhere, man. And when they get in your yard, they're pretty pernicious creatures.
Right. Hey, we're losing you for some reason.
Thank you for listening to the Law Frog Radio Show with David McDivitt and Ross Ford on Kilo 94.3 FM, presented by McDivitt Law Firm.